allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city recorder please call roll?
The mayor is absent. Council President Bowling.
Here.
Councilor Furlow.
Here.
Councilor Grizzles absent. Councilor Reeskamp.
Here.
Councilor Stouter.
Here.
Councilor Steinhebel.
Here.
All right. First up, we have the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items unless a councilor so requests. In this case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar, considered separately. Tonight, we have the agenda for tonight's meeting, December 11th. We have the board minutes from the Arts Commission of September 16th, 2019, and the council minutes from November 13th, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now is the time for public comments. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony comment card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take additional 2 minutes to respond. The city recorder will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. And we have a few cards already. The first speaker is Mr. Keith Murphy. Sir, could you step forward to have a seat here, and that way you'll be on the microphone, and everybody can hear you.
If you don't have a red light, push the button.
Thank you. It's on, I think.
Number 2, approving Republic Services rate increase. I'm new here. We moved here in March. Well, we lived here several years ago. Our boys went to high school here. Second time around. But I had a question concerning number 2. I had a question as to what it was all about.
You want to handle that, Ron?
Sure. So right now, what we have with Republic Services here tonight, what you see in the council agenda packet is annual CPI. We've been doing annual CPI with them for that's Consumer Price Index. So as inflation increases, they increase. Rather than taking larger increases throughout the years, they just follow basically what the consumer index is. And so that's what that's about tonight, is to increase that rate by, believe 3%.
How much?
About 3%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Yeah.
That's Consumers Electric? Or?
No, Consumer Price Index. So basically what the inflation rate throughout the West Coast is doing right now. We do the same thing for our utilities. We would typically look at things and see what the inflation over the year before was and what we're projecting for the next year. And we do that in order to try and stay pace with everything. And then that way we're not coming with big rate increases, or that's the hope anyway, to avoid that.
Well, I thought that was Republic. You're not talking about the trash and all of that.
No, we are. Yes, they have a franchise agreement with us. So we have to approve the rate increases. And when I say we, the city council body approves those rate increases. So that's what they're here for.
So they're asking the 3%.
Yes, per their franchise, yes. Yes.
Do I ask all my questions?
Sure, go for it.
Number 6, amending Lebanon Municipal Code. Fire marshal to issue citations. I don't agree with that. I don't believe, you have a police department, that's what they're for. The fire department is to put out fires, to if they see a situation, they call the police department. They're to assess the.
Sure, I can speak to this. So as the fire marshal, I have kind of 3 duties here. Public education, code enforcement, which is what this falls under, and then fire investigation. And so there are a lot of times, and we've been seeing an uptick in kind of some simple fire code violations. And of course, the Oregon Fire Code is adopted by the city as the fire code for the city of Lebanon. And so the Oregon administrative rules allow the police department to give authority to a fire officer to issue citations similar to being on their behalf, right? I think you'd agree that there are a lot more pressing criminal issues in our city than someone that might be obstructing a hydrant or parked in a fire lane. And while that may be an important thing that would possibly create the need for a citation, if we can keep our police on the streets enforcing more serious crimes and taking care of more serious issues, then that was kind of the reason we decided to work together to handle this. It's kind of a prioritization of the issue, right? And so, sure, it's important to get people cleared out of a fire lane or to not obstruct a hydrant or something like that, but it's not more important that it takes an officer off the street to deal with that when there's an available fire marshal that could handle that responsibility. And so it's kind of an efficiency amendment and to be a little bit more effective, a little more efficient for our customers.
Well, I lived in Paloma.
Mm-hmm.
And they were allowed to give those citations.
Mm-hmm.
And they went overboard. And I don't want that to happen here.
I can assure you that I'm much too busy with my usual job duties to go overboard with any of this. So
Well, I'm talking about the fire department.
that's me. Yeah, I'm the fire marshal. So
And, I lived out in the country.
mm-hmm.
And I was burning, and I was just finishing up, and here come the fire marshal with 2 fire trucks, all kinds of stuff. They had no right to do that, and it was on my son's property. And he said he was gonna turn me into DEQ.
Mm-hmm.
He had no reason to do that. I wasn't burning stuff that needed, he thought I was burning.
If you want to,
He was making a summation
sure,
that I was burning.
I'm happy to discuss all the ins and outs of that with you later. If you want to hang out after the meeting, and I'm happy to talk with you as much as you like.
What I'm saying is, he was making a presumption, and I just don't agree with the fire department doing those kind of things. He didn't have the right to try to make. And I followed him back to the fire station, and I told him I'd turn him in to DEQ, and he backed off. And he was going to write my son a ticket also. And he finally backed off. I don't agree with that. I mean, that's what the police department is supposed to do.
Understood.
Sir, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. I'm a retired police officer, and if I had to take the time to pull myself from the road, either doing traffic control or investigating the crimes that I'm getting dispatched to for a hydrant, even though that is very important, it really is not a good use we have a great opportunity for the fire department on those specific things to do that, and it's working in partnership together. I hope that, it sounds like you had some tough experiences in Philomath, and I hope that you give Lebanon Fire District a fair shake, because they're...
I don't agree with it.
Okay.
Understood.
I always feel that way.
Okay,
Did you
sounds
have
good.
Did you have one more issue to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was, at the end of this session, you have a executive session, private. And I don't agree with those either. If you have something to say, it should be public.
So we're going to be discussing an employee's evaluation, and by law, that's not done in a public session, and so we're not able to discuss that legally in public session. We do that with the employee in executive session by Oregon law. So we're just following the law.
Well, I can show you something. This is something that was put out by the legislature. And they went behind the voters' back to put this out. It's called CAT. And anybody making over $750,000 have to pay a tax. Now this comes into effect in January. They did this in secret session. And that's why I don't like anything in secret.
Understood.
Oregon does this in secret all the time. And they're being sued over it, and I hope they win, because they don't usually win, but
Okay.
that's why I don't like anything in secret.
I appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
All right, next up, Cassie Cruz.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Cassie.
Hey. Lots going on the last couple of weeks. Oh my goodness, it's like somewhat stopping. It's kind of nice in some regards. So we had our downtown window contest. That went really, really well. The community has spoken, and People's Choice had given it to the MBVA building, which you know before some other people, and so does YouTube. And then we had a great Jingle Bell run this year, and we're partnering with Special Olympics year over year because, well, they're athletes. And this is a run, so it's kind of a natural partnership. So we'll be giving walk proceeds for the Jingle Bell Run to Special Olympics to kind of help their athletes to be able to travel across the state as they need to. And then, of course, proceeds will go back to LGA to continue to help that event and other events go forward. One thing I'm excited about is we have, and I don't think I shared last council, part of the Art Commission's endeavors include bringing murals to downtown. And so I recently just submitted a grant to Willamette Visitor Association to attain funds so we can get that project started. And then working with local artists in our area and a few of the building owners that are excited about bringing change to the back of their buildings and to even the side, down our city streets, our side streets, to get people to start traveling down those side streets. Another endeavor that I'm excited about, it kind of aligns with that, involves our First Fridays. I may have touched on this last council meeting. I don't know. I'm not getting any head nods. So yes, thank you, Jason. So we are working with different businesses and different groups as such to kind of help implement that First Fridays, because having 4 people, as we all know, does not necessarily get effectively everything done. But the more people we bring on board, the greater we can make it. And so we have people like Willamette Gaming Company. I think I shared this with Jason a few weeks ago. They focus on Dungeons and Dragons, D&D, and Magic, and so they're going to bring a D&D kind of First Friday themed for October. So, and they have tons of guilds and tons of different pockets within the community. So we're going to have people working with our design committee to, bring in design to downtown to make it seem like you're a part of that D&D feel. So the goal is to do that with most of our First Fridays. One of the ones that we did not see this as strong this last year, which was our Honor to Courage First Friday. So we want to bring in more veterans to really kick that off for next year. So we're bringing more people on board with us to help us implement these different fun things. So that's really great. And then we started the, once a month I go on KGAL, and Rebecca Grizzle will be joining me now that she'll be with our chamber. So that should be, I know.
There goes your listenership.
I know. Well, if anything, people will at least just hear us banter back and forth. So that should be fun for the half hour to an hour or so. But we're moving along, and things are going really well. And just. Let's see what else we have going on. We had that. And then, of course, we had our Shop Small event that brought people out downtown to encourage them to shop within their downtown district, which is wonderful. And that went really, really well. And then, actually, another new connection that I'm excited about because it involves our youth in the community is Ralston Academy. They have a lot of youth that need to get a bit more community service hours. So I spoke with Rachel Cannon, and there's something kind of going down the pike we're trying to work right now in line with like Will Tucker and Red Cross, but we'll wait to see how that comes about. But immediately they're going to be, students will be working with our downtown association to kind of help put up those flags during Veterans Day and Memorial Day and kind of some other things to kind of make them a part of our community. So bringing the youth around downtown to help us out. So it's going really well. But I think that's really all I have and almost to read. So unless anyone has any questions, I think I'm about done. Awesome.
You get any comments on the trees?
No, actually, good comments. So nothing negative. Everyone has been in approval of them. And I think some people thought, I thought they'd be much bigger. I'm like, no, they grow. We need room to grow. So it's all been positive, which is great, and people are loving it. So, and our design committee is on board to working to try to attain grants so we can get more lighting downtown, kind of like the Ridge lighting done. So, and I had gone to a conference that spoke all to that. So I'm looking forward to see when they start moving on that, what comes about, what I get to share in that regard. But that's officially it.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Cassie. Thank you. Are there any other public comments tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the regular session. Agenda item number 1, the Lebanon Public Facilities Master Plan Needs Assessment, presented by Ron Whitlatch, Interim City Manager.
Thank you, Councilor Bolin and the rest of the council. Attached to this memo is we're still calling it draft master plan for the needs assessment for City Hall. The only reason for the draft still being on there is in case there was some comments or anything that any of the council wanted to add to this or take out of it. Really, it's not much different than when we were here in August. Mackenzie presented most of this to you in August, basically outlining, I think we landed on Academy Square as being the location for the new City Hall. So the key takeaways out of this basically are the master plan identifies the size and location of the new City Hall. It's also got some possible funding strategies in the back. If you look towards the back, not necessarily funding strategies, but more along the lines of cost of what it would cost to if we were to bond it, so on and so on. So based on their square footage, they assumed that we would need at a minimum 14,000 square feet. They ran one for 25,000 square feet, which would include the county courts and also quote-unquote lease space if the city decided to go that route. And you can see on the table there that the debt service payments on those amounts, you're upwards of $13 million and between $7 and $13 million for depending on the size at $400 a square foot. That's what they're assuming. You can see the debt service on those. For the lower end, you're about $440,000 a year. For the upper end, you're upwards of $780,000 a year. So we went through that process with them. Basically, we're here tonight to a couple things. A couple things before we're asking for a motion to approve this plan. One of the things that we've been thinking about, Matt and I have looked at several options to do this. Obviously, bonding, it's not a real palatable option, I don't think. And we've looked internally. What does some of this look like? At first blush, there's probably funds if we do some different things that you could come close to this. Now, I'm not saying for sure. I think we would need to dig into it a little bit more, but I think what we need from the council is, do we want to table this for now and move it on down the road? Or would you like Matt and I to dig into this a little bit and see if there's a funding package available to, within the funds that we have now, to move that forward as just a proposal and come back in a work session, in a couple months? That's kind of your guys', however you want to proceed with that.
How much of this would involve what kind of planning for next year's budget process, which is rapidly approaching, is this going to impact?
Well, there's a couple of things. So, obviously we can start saving right now for it and putting money aside. What does that look like? Matt and I'd have to dig into that a little bit, but how much money are we talking about? The other thing is to look at current funding, our current revenue stream, and see exactly how a new city hall and what we could fit into that. So it does impact the budget for next year. We actually had a staff meeting yesterday, and one of the things we talked about was we got our first January budget meeting with all the directors, and we're going to start the process early this year. It's going to be a little bit different than years past. We're actually going to have probably some council engagement prior to bringing it to the budget committee, just on some various issues that are more geared towards policy rather than what we would do internally. So yeah, it does make an impact if we don't decide to do that. It would be pretty simple. I think Matt and I could probably look into it and either come back in a long agenda item, or we could do a 5:30 work session and just go, hey, here's what we looked at, here's the impacts of this, if we move it forward. If not, we can put it on the shelf, pass it, and we can pick it up at a later date. Whatever your desire.
I'm not a fan of kicking this thing down the road like we've done with other things that have come back to kind of bite us. This building needs to be replaced in a bad way, and I think there's really no time like the present to at least start a conversation about how we would do that. This is not a commitment to dive into this right now, but what you're talking about is coming back with some options of what's feasible, what's not feasible, what would be the directions to take if we're going to move forward on this in the near future.
I think you can look at size. Maybe what we get out of this work session, or whatever we call it, is, hey, we're going to set aside X every year and start putting money away so that in 5 years we've got
some
a pot of money that we can use towards debt service and kicking the thing off the ground. I would agree with you. I don't think this thing's going to happen anytime fast, but it seems like over the course of the last 3 to 5 years, we've kind of brought and then it ties and brought it, and so we don't want to put any more staff time into it unless we want to move it down that road a little bit.
Well, the longer we kick the can down the road, the more expensive it's going to get.
Yeah, and there's a lot of maintenance issues with that building that we have now, but that said, it still functions and we're still able to work out of it. So
yeah, we're just one wind event away from.
There's that.
We're not kidding, right?
It's
structurally unstable.
Sustained 45. Yeah. So anyway,
I agree with Jason. I think I like the option of you and Matt getting together, coming up with some ideas. Just kind of see what we need to do and then bring it back.
And we've looked, and just at first blush, we can. There's things that we can do to probably get really close to that debt service, if not now, but within 5 years, getting close to that debt service. So it probably warrants taking a look at that, and that kind of falls in line with our budget process this year. Policy-wise, how council wants to proceed with some of these things, rather than just making a guess at it. So
I think it's a good start.
Okay.
At the right time. I'd entertain a motion.
I move to go ahead and approve and have you guys start looking into the award project.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this agenda item. Do we have a preference on a 5:30 work session or just extending an agenda? So would that be for the January meeting?
Yeah, we might do February on
February's
that.
meeting?
Yeah, I think January.
Not ready, Matt?
Starting to fill up.
So it sounds like we'll put a 5:30 work session on the February meeting. The date of that was
12th.
the 12th.
Is 5:30 work session long enough?
I think it will be, Wayne. I think there's not a lot of options to go over. So, I think we can dig through it and kind of really steer a direction.
Bump it out anyway.
Yeah, so we can steer a direction so we know what to do for budget.
Very good.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2, approving Republic Services rate increase and repealing resolution number 201834. Matt Apkin, Finance Director.
Hello, Council. Can you guys hear me? I can't
Hello.
really tell. Okay. So, I'm back again on the Republic Services. So, I wanted to make sure you guys got the memo. We're able to kind of see in the memo the comparison, definitely, that we put in there between what the City of Lebanon does and some other jurisdictions in the area. This is kind of where we felt like when we originally looked at this, we thought maybe we needed to dig into some of the numbers a little bit more. As we did that, it made a lot of sense that what Republic Services is asking for is reasonable. We're also looking to kind of restart some negotiations with them to kind of clean up some of our franchise agreement language. And we would bring that back to you guys either in January or February when we go through that. But overall, we feel it's reasonable to have the 2.4% increase, which equates to about 64 cents for the average household per month. Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Have the City Attorney read the resolution.
Resolution number 2019-28, a resolution approving Republic Service rate increases and repealing Resolution 2018-34.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2019-28. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3, approving a franchise agreement with Pacific Power and repealing Ordinance Bill 2009-13 and Ordinance 2783. Matt Apkin.
So our Pacific Power and Light franchise agreement expires, I think, later this month on the 22nd. So we've worked with them to kind of redo that franchise agreement. There were little changes to it, some engineering changes from what Pacific Power originally suggested to give some better timetables. Other than that, the difference would be the franchise fee going from 5.94% up to 7%. You guys have any questions?
And what does that increase the rate on a monthly basis approximately?
1.06%.
It's kind of hard because that one's based on how much usage there is. So, I mean, if they were to use $100 of electricity, that's $1. $1.06.
Reasonable.
All right. Trey, you want to read the ordinance?
Yep. Ordinance Bill number 2019-15, ordinance number 2938. A bill for an ordinance establishing a non-exclusive franchise for Pacificorp doing business as Pacific Power and repealing ordinance number 2009-13, ordinance 2783.
Move to approve?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Ordinance Bill number 2019-15, Ordinance 2938. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to temporarily adjourn as Lebanon City Council and convene as the Cheetah Lake Urban Renewal Agency. Item number 4 is also Matt Apkin, updating authorization of the debt reserve Opus Bank account.
So as you guys know, we've had some turnover in staff since maybe June when the city recorder, Linda Kaiser, retired. And then we've had Gary leave and also Tina Huff leave. Because of that, we need to update some of the information in our debt signing authority. And to do that, we are required by Opus Bank to bring to you this authorization resolution. So that's changing a few of those people out and adding both Kim and myself to be able to deal those transactions with Opus Bank. Do you have any questions?
Did you have 3 people before, or?
Before there was, I think there might have been one more, but yes, there were 3 before. You can see that to open or close any of the deposit accounts, that has to be done by either Paul or Kim. And then I have the authority to endorse checks, orders, that type of stuff.
Just curious.
Yeah.
If there are no further questions, we'll have the city attorney read the resolution.
Resolution number 2019-31, a resolution of the Cheetah Lake Urban Renewal Agency updating authorizations of the debt reserve Opus Bank account.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2019-31. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will now adjourn as the Cheetah Lake Urban Renewal Agency and reconvene as Lebanon City Council.
Gavel.
Gavel it.
Yeah.
Item number 5, amending the Lebanon Municipal Code, section 2.12.030, 2.12.040, and 2.12050, and creating section 2.13 titled Candidate Nominations for Elective Office, presented by Kim Schaefer, City Recorder.
Well, as you can tell, I'm going through the code, and the last couple meetings have been bringing back some changes. Next year's an election year, so I've been going through the nomination process for elective offices. Currently, that section is under a chapter called Officers and Employees, so it's very confusing. So this puts it in a separate chapter by itself. Current code language refers to the 1979 charter. So if you don't have a copy of that charter in front of you, you don't really know what it says. So this puts that language in the charter, or in the code regarding signature requirements. Language was also added, making it the candidate's responsibility to have their signatures verified by the county instead of the cities. It sort of takes the burden off the city. Most everyone just files by fee instead of signatures. So, and then also the filing dates for running for office. Those were contained in a resolution instead of in the municipal code. So this actually puts them in the code. And the former dates were July 12th through the 30th, but it made no reference to if one of those dates was on a weekend. So this cleans it up a little. It actually extends the period a little on when someone can file their paperwork. And that's it.
Sounds good. Any questions?
No, but thank you for cleaning this stuff up. I've enjoyed this stuff coming it seems like every month there's a new cleanup, so thank you.
I'll have the city attorney read the ordinance.
Ordinance bill number 2019-16, ordinance number 2939. A bill for an ordinance amending sections 2.12, 030, 040, and 050 of the Lebanon Municipal Code and creating chapter 2.13 titled Candidate Nominations for Elective Office.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill number 2019-16, ordinance 2939. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 6, amending Lebanon Municipal Code, section 1.16040, allowing fire marshal to issue citations, presented by Trey Kennedy, City Attorney.
Thank you, Council President Bolin. So this all started with an email from Councilor Bolin. He said, hey, I've got a badge, why can't I write tickets?
That was not the email.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Strike that from the record.
No, it's actually something that we've struggled with because there's some of the fire code violations and different things that are not necessarily priorities of the Lebanon Fire Department, although they are responsive as they can possibly be given their resources. What did I say?
Fire.
I'm sorry, the police department. Now we're going to get those confused. Are very, very significant issues for the Lebanon Fire Department as far as, parking. They can go out there and say, hey, you're parked in a fire zone. Na, what can you do about it, right? And, if they could call the police and there was one available, they would go down there, obviously. But it just makes sense because, honestly, especially the fire code and some different things within it, Jason and the staff at the police department, now you got me going reverse every single time. Jason and the staff at the fire department have a unique perspective as an understanding of that specialty code. And I think that in a capacity of being limited to issues that surrounding enforcement of the fire code and fire-related state laws and municipal codes. They're in a unique position to help protect the safety and welfare of Lebanon residents. Certainly, first thing I did was run it by Chief Stevenson, and he indicated to me that he supports that. And there will be some training involved. In other words, whoever writes the citation has to be prepared to come in and prosecute the case, whether it be with the assistance of the city attorney, or if the other side does not get a lawyer, they have to prosecute this case themselves, which is something that the Lebanon police officers do on a regular basis. So there'll be some training. I understand that Chief Stevenson is more than willing to provide some of that training on how to not only write the tickets, but then present the case for the municipal court for the judge. So I think it truly just makes sense. It's good for Lebanon, and I know that we've kind of already introduced this topic, and Mr. Bolin and Chief Stevenson may have some comments to add as well.
Anything?
No, just this is going to be it's going to be a nice relief to have someone that we can train and can deal with some of these issues. And I think you hit it on the head when you said, my officers are already out there doing a tremendous job at a lot of different things, and that's where their focus is. And it's hard for when he's seeing a violation, calling us to say, hey, I have this car blocking this, and can you send someone else over? And we're in the middle of already dealing with, 5 other different things to help. To have that partnership will help us tremendously focus in on the more pressing issues like you talked about. So I'm in full support of it, and I think it's going to be a great thing.
I agree. I think anytime you can pool resources and put
Absolutely.
2 municipalities together and maximize, it kind of exponentially maximizes their resources and maximizes their effectiveness. And so this is a measure that's going to help PD, it's going to help fire department, and it's going to help citizens at the same time, because they're the ones ultimately making these complaints, and they
Correct.
are the customers who are looking for service. And when PD can't show up in a timely manner because they're busy with important stuff, that customer doesn't quite understand that. They're wondering why no one showed up. Well, now if we're available, we're able to show up and handle that for them.
Right.
So
in a sense, it's just another tool for the police department that can rely on the partnership of the fire department, and that's a very, very good thing to have.
it also marks the first time that a firefighter ever wanted to be a cop versus the usual cop wanting to be a fireman. So
Keep the jokes to me.
thank you, Bill.
Is that a frequent thing? Happens?
It's been more and more frequent, and a lot of this has come with the influx of private streets that have come into Lebanon. This is where this all started, was with some private streets.
Okay.
And how do we enforce fire code or municipal code violations on a private street? And that led us down this path of what the violation is. Is it a fire code violation, or is it a muni code violation, or is it a Oregon law violation? What is it, and who can prosecute it, who can cite it? So that's where this all kind of started. Mm-hmm. But as more of these developments go in with private streets, we're seeing a lot more of the parking issues, and people, they don't have enough spots, so they're blocking up access lanes. And so it's not just for fire, but it's also for ambulance and to be able to get a medic unit into a tight area to serve a patient. So,
For instance, in the retail world, and I see it mostly at Walmart, there's always people parked in the fire lane.
Mm-hmm. And the district's not doing this to pursue revenue or to go out looking for things. This is strictly going to be complaint driven or observation driven. But there's a difference between a stop and educate and a need to cite or tow a vehicle. And so when someone's parked in a vehicle at Walmart, one of our people may just pull up and educate them on what the law is and how they're impeding that, versus we're not going to pull them out of their car and tow their car.
Right.
That's not the plan.
And Karen, you can say, a large part of our duties is to educate the public and not necessarily just start writing tickets left and right. It's all part of compliance. So
is the scope of this only within fire lane obstruction and fire access road? And the gentleman was asking about like trash burning, and I know I've had individuals, or a particular individual email about, someone's burning trash in the backyard, it's wafting into my window. We've found out that that's not something code can cite on. Is this something then that the fire marshal can?
So it is, and I think these are examples given of the scope, just to give some primary examples. But there are open burning violations, or open burning statutes that exist in the fire code that can be enforced through this as well. And we will handle that delicately with police, because oftentimes when you're dealing with something, we already go out and deal with these, but when it comes to issuing the citation, we're going to be checking with PD to make sure that there's no, say, past aggressive history at that address. We don't want to get our people in a safe situation. So, but yes, those things can be handled by either party.
Yeah, it wasn't a very artful sentence. It should have, instead of a dash, it should have been IE, period,
Well, it does
for
say
example.
specifically.
I know.
So I didn't know
I just
if
reread
that
it, and it was not
was the
not as
extent
great
of
a
the
written.
scope. Also, the designee, so those people will, whoever they may be, will have training as well, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
right. We're going to start with one person just to limit the scope of this and test it out. Yeah, me
Right.
being the code official for the fire district, and then if we need to expand it, we can. But it just limits the liability for us having multiple people out with multiple ticket books.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I get to get up at the middle of the night and go.
Yeah.
That-
Move your car.
Technically, I think Chief Stevenson probably could have given him authority to do it just under the designee of the chief of police under subsection B. But I felt that it was probably a discussion worth the council having, so we did collectively thought the council should weigh in on it.
All right.
Good deal.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll have the city attorney read the ordinance.
Ordinance Bill number 2019-17, ordinance number 2940, a bill for an ordinance amending 1.16 of the Lebanon Municipal Code relating to Title 1.16.040, persons authorized to issue citations.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill number 2019-17, ordinance 2940. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, approving contract for city manager recruitment with Prothman. Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you, City Council. I think everybody got a copy of the contract. So we've been back and forth with Prothman over the last couple of days to discuss the contract. Our committee met on December 3rd? Yeah, December 3rd. And we discussed the changes in the scope, what the committee wanted, and basically what those changes were. The committee wanted to be involved in the screening of the interviews, or screening of the applicants, so looking at all the applications, and also being on the preliminary interviews of the 8 to 10 applicants. If you look through the contract, and we're just using numbers here, but they indicate that in that section, the rest of the contract the committee agreed with, they would, where's that piece at? Oh, conduct the preliminary screening. So basically what they would do is they would do some in-depth video conferencing of 8 to 12 applicants. But I think the committee said, hey, we want to see most all of the applications. And I have more on that as we get through that. So that was really the only change. Now, cross that out, because that's probably not going to happen. It's going to be as the contract's written. As we've been working with Prothman, basically they do not want any staff on the selection process up front. So this becomes completely a council action. What staff can do is help get the profile together and help get you to that point. But Prothman's model is they will not allow any staff. So our committee that was appointed, they're saying that no staff can be on that committee, i.e. myself, Frank, Jason, and Kim. So they don't want us on that. So that's the first thing. That we kind of went, okay. So now I guess it becomes, what does the council want? Because it kind of renders our committee decision somewhat, what we talked about.
What if we hold this, meet as a committee again, and discuss what that is, and then come back for council?
We can do that. We can do that. The other option is, you go through and, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how this would work. They come down and they I believe in their contract, how's that worded? So they would come down and help you, with whoever the 3 to 5 best candidates are, their recommendation for that. So, I guess that's up to you guys how you want to approach that. The other thing is, there's the options are open. I just know that if we use Prothman, they're not willing to, which we're okay with. If that's the direction, and this is the council's hire, but I just need to know,
the committee itself was appointed because, partially because we wanted more involvement, not less involvement with hiring our city manager. And if this isn't something that, Prothman can work with us, I know they have a great reputation, but I can't imagine going through this process without, of course, council, but the directors with our,
So direct. So and that kind of leads into this. So on the 22nd of January, if you look at there will be a time for directors where they would meet with all the directors, right? So and meet. They just don't want. Her words to me, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here. They don't want us involved in the screening of the next city manager. And if that's how Prothman does their work, then that's how they do their work. It's just a matter of whether this body's okay with that. Staff's going to roll however we roll.
Well, some of the things I know that we brought up in committee were, if there's, for example, an education requirement or something, well, maybe there's someone that has a boatload of experience that's automatically tossed out, or, someone on the East Coast that maybe they have roots here, but we're only looking at the Northwest. And there's things that are within that we then don't know. We just are at their...
Yeah, and I think that's something that too can be dealt with them, because they'll come down for the January 22nd work session, and then ideally we'll have a work session with them, and you guys can either choose to go through that process with them in that work session in a public setting, and also have a one-on-one with them as individual counselors. They say that that's typically how they would do it. Or you can just strictly go with just the work session. That's the other piece of this that we kind of need to, as far as scheduling. At that time, I think you could tell them, hey, these are the things that we want to make sure aren't getting missed. I don't know how that looks as far as reviewing, because I think they give you a summary of all the applications, but I don't know I've never done it, so I don't have a good feel for that.
And we're using Prothman because we've used them in the past, and we decided not to go out for bid just because of that, and then the fire district's success recently, or I guess that was the gist of it. I think that was what the council kind of wanted, was to go with Prothman, folks that have been on it and have looked at that in the past with their contacts. There's other agencies out there, but I'm not sure. For instance, I think the city of Springfield is using, the name escapes me now, but it's somebody different. They had 42 applications for their last round. They went through 3 people and said no to any of them. So they're going back out again. So I believe Harrisburg has done the same thing. So that's another thing we need to be prepared for. I
doubt that there's much difference between any of them.
Well, I would assume, there's Harrisburg, there's Springfield, there's a couple others. Kim, do you remember? I looked the other day, and I think I told you, but I don't remember what they were. But there's several other cities that are looking right now too. So, it could be a challenge.
So I can give some perspective on the process. We just came out of one. We literally just swore in a chief last night using Prothman to get to that point. And so, my position at the fire district would be considered a staff position, I think I can explain kind of how that works, right? Because I'm assuming it's the same policy they use for you or for us that they would for the fire district. There is ample opportunity for input. There's ample opportunity for viewing candidate qualifications or setting qualifications, expressing to the firm what you want in a leader of your city, and then when the time comes, you're presented with a group of applicants or finalists, and then there's ample opportunity for the council to mull over that with the guidance of the Prothman people. They will give you a little bit more of the back history and a little bit more of why this candidate may have this certification versus that, or this degree versus that, et cetera. And I could imagine what their fear or what their trepidation is with the staff being involved in that selection process is that, one, by charter, the council is tasked with hiring the city manager, the city attorney, and the city judge. So it's our responsibility and solely our responsibility, and that's a big one. But two, the potential to have a subordinate involved in the selection process of their supervisor and maybe guiding a council who may not pick up on some things that the subordinate picks up could put the city in a bit of a precarious position.
I'm not that smart, so
I know you're not, but somebody might be, you know. So I think some of that might be just a safety valve of.
And that's the way they explain it. And I from the last time that we've done this, I can attest, Michelle, that there is ample opportunity to do that, and they do have an interview panel of staff. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there will be that time. I think the biggest thing we were looking at was don't miss somebody because of qualifications.
Right.
And
that's
that
for
can
the
be
council
relayed.
to decide, though,
Yes.
is where we're going to set these qualifications.
Right.
And
but even if you've got the qualifications set, you know, it's going to be based off of what the job description is and what the profile is, and don't miss that one person that doesn't quite fit in under this, but yet, you know, hey, they've got a lot of experience over here. And that's what the committee talked about, was making sure.
So in the case of our experience recently, there were a number of candidates who were close to meeting or had equivalencies. That was brought back to the board of directors at the fire district for review. The explanations were given, and the decision was given to the board. You have the option of sticking with the qualifications as drafted, and then you also have the option, though, of accepting someone who is on this list who may not be qualified, but you would like to bring them further in the process or to the next step of the process. And that was an option given to our board, and our board at the time said, we're going to keep the qualifications as they are, and then they said, that's great, here are your 5 finalists at that point, and we came forward that way. So even though the contract says one thing and the qualifications say one thing, the firm still offers you the opportunity to override your own requirements and bring someone in at the council's discretion. And I think who better at this point to understand what our staff is going to feel comfortable with and who our staff, what kind of person and worker our staff would feel comfortable with than this council right now. I think we have a really good finger on the pulse of that. So the opportunity will still be there. It's not a out the window kind of thing where it's black or white.
And I would agree with that. I don't disagree. I could go either way, but I don't think there's going to be a big. It will still have a say in it, but at the end of the day, this is the council's decision to make this call, and we can give input, but ultimately, you guys need to make the call.
And I know this body obviously will make that call. I think that it's also important to have staff involved, and if I'm hearing that you're happy with the involvement that's presented here, then that's fine. But yeah. I know looking forward, I would prefer more involvement, especially later on. We have evaluations here on this agenda today. 360 evaluations, things like that for the future for this next leader in a city manager. And if you're kind of removing them from the process from the beginning, I would just want to make sure that they're involved in those processes down the road. So.
And we'll be involved in if you think about it, really the only thing we're missing here is that initial interview. Really, that I think if I'm, I can't remember anything that came else out of.
I think it's the 8 to 12.
Yeah.
That I'm hearing.
So to that,
we didn't do that last time.
Yeah. We thought, okay, maybe it makes sense for us to be in on that, to see facial expressions, to see what what we're looking at there. But I think we'll be just fine. And who knows, we may not find, you may not find the one that you want, right?
That's true,
Right.
too.
Out of this
Absolutely
batch.
true, yes.
And,
Especially with the competition.
yes,
As important as our staff's perception of, like you said, the facial expressions, the body language, the answers that they give,
yeah.
as important as that is, how often do you do that versus how often do these guys do that and move candidates through and see them either be successful or see the failures, see the setup, see the fall. I feel like these guys are kind of the subject matter experts when it comes to that interview process because it's their process and they do it all the time for a living. So,
Well, it's not just staff, too. It's 2 counselors and the mayor that were also going to be involved in the 8 to 12 process. So it's not just staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's their procedure. It's a standard procedure.
Sure.
And I think it kind of is what it is. I don't know that we'd find something vastly different at another firm, to be honest.
Yeah, probably, and you might not. I don't know. I think from our perspective, I mean, Frank, you can jump in here if you want, but I think as long as we have the opportunity to meet with Prothman, which we will, there'll be work sessions and executive sessions where, likely Kim and I will be in the room for that, so that we can, if somebody has a question, hey, what do you think? That type of stuff, we can be there to answer that. So I don't foresee it as being a big issue. Let's see where the process takes us, and
Staff is going to have ample opportunity one-on-one.
Yeah.
Prior to we making a
absolutely.
decision.
And just know that we'll. I hate to say this out loud, but if we don't find the right one, we'll just keep going.
That's the thing. Bottom line, if you don't like them, you flush them all, and you come back with
Right.
And
a
don't be.
different setup.
And I think that's one of the staff's things is don't be afraid to do that
trust
on
me.
our part.
I don't think we are.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I guess if I have to step outside and and I'm thinking if I'm working a case and I'm I'm the investigator, and then I've got someone who doesn't have that experience comes in and says, hey, I want to do it this way. It's like, whoa, you're kind of messing up my mojo here. That's not when you start doing the interrogation piece. This is the make you feel good piece. You know what I'm saying? So I can see from their perspective how they wouldn't want us to do that. So as long as I just want that assurance that we have that ability to at some point step in and say, whoa.
You will have ample opportunity.
They'll carry us all the way through this. I have confidence in that. We were involved in the last one that they did, and I mean we had involvement in that. So, but reality is, we have to work with them. But ultimately, this is the direction that you want to go, and that person's tasked with giving us the direction to go that direction. So, if that makes sense. Yep. In that direction.
Well, and I think we have a fair measure of staff, the directors, and what they've been through over the past 2 or 3 managers, and how you're going to feel about your next supervisor.
Sure.
Any other discussion?
So one quick other item, the 22nd, I believe we have a that's set up for a noon work session with Prothman. Is the council wanting to do individual sessions with them so that I can kind of let them know?
I liked that last time. I thought the individual sessions were really good.
So
personally.
we'll set that up. I don't know before or after. We'll try and get on that tomorrow and get some ideas of when that can happen. But hopefully that day. And I know they wanted to talk to staff on that day too. So we'll go with that. And I know that our committee wanted the council to approve this by motion, and then we can get it signed.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move for the contractor. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the contract for city manager recruitment with Prothman. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item number 8, city manager's report. Ron Whitlatch.
Okay. Lots of good stuff happening. I won't go through all of it. Couple of things that aren't in the agenda or on the city manager's report that kind of bring back to you. I wanted to let you know that the police upgrade's done. Brent and Frank They claim that it went seamless and it's great now, which is awesome. So that's done. We're actually, reason I'm bringing that up is because we're actually looking at a financial software upgrade too. It's been budgeted for, and so we're in the process of looking at that, and we're thinking highly of going with the same group that did the police department, same software package, and going that route. So we're still in that process, but we'll stay tuned for that, and we'll keep you posted. I'm sure everybody read about the water line connection to Sodaville, probably. That's supposed to be top secret? Okay. So Sodaville and the state and also USDA approached me, well, probably late last summer and said, hey, Sodaville needs some help with water. They buy water from us now. They truck it. And I said, well, we'd entertain it. Biggest thing, this can't impact our ratepayers whatsoever, and but let's take a look at what you've got. So they're in the process right now of putting together a contract with Carollo Engineers, who did ours, which I recommended because if it's coming off of our plant, I want somebody that's familiar with our plant that knows how that's going to react, to do a feasibility study of running a pipe out to Sodaville and providing wholesale water. Lots and lots of details to work out, but that's what that's all about. How it gets paid for, the state and USDA is working on all that stuff, but we had just had one meeting before that came out in the paper, and it's like, where'd this come from? So anyway, the county's on board. The county commissioner was there at our meeting, and I think everybody'd like to see it happen. I think the biggest hurdle is who's paying for it and how much is it going to cost. So anyway, that's that. One other thing that came to me this week, Lebanon Community Foundation, Alicia Rogers was at one of their meetings, and they are no longer going to do the 4th of July celebration.
Oh, wow.
Basically comes down to cost and lack of volunteers. They were doing it as a fundraiser, and cost was about $25,000, and they were only making about $2,000. So I don't know exactly. Somebody asked, does the city want to take that on? And I said, no. I don't think we can take that on. I would love to light the fireworks off, but
I'd cite you for that.
I know you would. I got a citation for it. But anyway, that's out there. I don't know if we want to try and find some other group to do that. I think that's going to be a tall order at that kind of money. So unfortunately, that's the news that we got. So, and I think unless you got any questions, that is it.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Any items from council? Okay. Any public or press comments? Public comments? All right. Our next scheduled meeting is January 8th at 6 p.m. It's a regular session. And then January 22nd at noon, there'll be a work session with Prothman now. We'll adjourn for executive session.